last episode, we met Diogenes, who lived in a ceramic jar. He gave up almost all his possessions using extreme poverty to prove a point. When a person no longer craves wealth, status, and rewards, power loses its grip over them. In our last episode, we met Diogenes, who lived in a ceramic jar. He gave up almost all his possessions using extreme poverty to prove a point. When a person no longer craves wealth, status, and rewards, power loses its grip over them. But for the vast majority of ordinary people, this lifestyle is simply too extreme. We still have to work, pay rent, and take care of our families. So, is there a philosophy that allows us to keep living in society without being completely swallowed up by stress and constant changes? More than 2,000 years ago, Stoicism and Epicureanism offered two very different answers. Stoicism tells us, do not hand your inner self over to things you cannot control. Epicureanism tells us, do not let endless desires take over your life. One teaches you how to stand firm in a storm, while the other reminds you that some storms are not even worth entering in the first place. Let's start with Stoicism. According to stories passed down to us, the founder Zeno was originally a merchant, and a shipwreck destroyed his cargo and brought him stranded to Athens. In a bookstore, he heard stories about Socrates and asked the bookseller, "Where can I find a man like him?" The bookseller pointed to Crates, a cynic philosopher who happened to be walking by on the street. And so, Zeno began studying philosophy and gradually developed his own school of thought. He inherited the cynic skepticism of wealth and fame, but he did not demand that people abandon society. Diogenes chose to drop out of civilization. Zeno, however, tried to answer, how do we live inside civilization without becoming its slave? Zeno later gave lectures at a painted colonnade next to the Athenian marketplace. The Greek word for colonnade is stoa, and that is how Stoicism got its name. By the Roman era, this school produced three representatives with completely different backgrounds: Seneca, a wealthy politician; Epicurus, a former slave; and Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. One was a powerful elite, one a slave, and one the emperor. Yet they all discovered that no matter where you sit in society, fate will never ask for your opinion beforehand. Epicurus divided the things in life into two categories: things that are up to us and things that are not up to us. The weather, wars, the economy, other people's opinions, physical aging, and final outcomes are not entirely decided by us. What truly belongs to us is our own judgment, choice, action, and response. This does not mean we can instantly control all of our emotions. When insulted, we might still feel angry, and when losing a loved one, we will still feel grief. What Stoicism truly emphasizes is this: after an event happens, we do not have to automatically buy into the very first explanation that pops up into our heads. For example, if someone did not reply to your message, that's a fact. He must look down on me, that's the judgment that we would add. The project failed, that's a fact. My life is completely over, that's just another layer of interpretation. Stoicism wants us to carve out a small gap of rational space between the events and our reaction. Just like a sailor in a storm, he cannot order the wind to stop, but he can still adjust his sails. The Stoics called health, wealth, and reputation preferred indifference. This term sounds a bit contradictory, but what this means is that while these things can be preferred and chosen, they do not determine whether a person is morally noble, nor can they guarantee happiness on their own. Health is to be cherished, but falling ill does not mean your life has lost its value. Wealth is very useful, but being rich does not make you noble. Reputation can help you get things done, but being misunderstood does not mean your character has been destroyed. Therefore, Stoicism does not ask people to reject external things, rather it reminds us, you can work hard to obtain them, but you must never mortgage your soul to them. However, Stoicism also carries obvious risks. When accepting uncontrollable things is misused, it can easily turn into an excuse demanding that victims suffer in silence. When emotions stem from judgment is understood too simplistically, it can also turn into a weapon to blame those who are grieving. But Stoicism is not about turning humans into unfeeling machines. What it truly opposes is letting fear, anger, and jealousy completely dictate our judgment. A person will still get hurt in a disaster. What Stoicism says is that you should not feel pain, but rather, pain does not have to rule your life. If Stoicism is about training yourself to stand firmer in a storm, Epicureanism offers another path. Some storms are simply not worth entering. Today, an Epicurean lifestyle often brings to mind fine dining, wine, and a luxurious indulgence. But the historical Epicurus actually lived a very simple life. The pleasure he pursued was not about constantly piling up stimulation, but achieving two states of tranquility: aponia, the absence of pain in the body, and ataraxia, the absence of fear and trouble in the mind. He divided desires into three categories. The first category consists of natural and necessary desires like basic food, shelter, and safety. The second category is natural, but unnecessary desires such as more exquisite food and a more comfortable environment. The third category is empty desires like infinite wealth, power, fame, and the praise of everyone. The first two categories of desires have a clear ending point of satisfaction. Hunger stops once you're full. But for someone who wants to be the richest person, how much money is ever enough? For someone who craves validation from everyone, how much applause will it take to finally feel secure? Empty desires are like salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you will get. Epicurus therefore advocated for simplifying desires, avoiding endless competition, and valuing friendship and a peaceful communal life. His school was known as the Garden, and for him, a truly luxurious life was not about enjoying banquets every day, but knowing that you can be fully satisfied with it even without one. He also sought to eliminate humanity's fear of the gods and death. In his view, if the gods are perfect and happy beings, they would not spend their days monitoring and punishing humans. And as for death, he pushed towards a very famous argument. When we are here, death is not. When death is here, we are no longer. Therefore, death itself will never be a part of our experience. He wanted people to stop being tortured by an imagined future and instead return to the livable present. If we put these two philosophies into a modern office building, they remain highly practical. When you are staring at an avalanche of unread emails, non-stop message pings, and unreachable KPIs, Stoicism will ask you, what can you actually influence? You can control your preparation, your communication, and the quality of your actions, but you cannot fully control your boss's mood, your coworkers' evaluations, or the final results. So, do not waste all your mental energy obsessing over the outcome. Epicureanism, on the other hand, will ask, is this goal what you actually need? Are you pursuing a stable life, or are you chasing an ever-shifting benchmark of success? The answer does not have to be quitting your job to grow potatoes in the countryside. It simply means cutting out comparison, lowering unnecessary consumption, and reclaiming time for family, friends, and a quiet life. So in conclusion, Stoicism distinguishes actions from outcomes. And Epicureanism helps us distinguish needs from desires. So, distinguishes needs from desires. And one trains us to stand tall against more unavoidable stress, and the other reminds us that much of that stress was never really necessary in the first place. And of course, both philosophies have their limits. Stoicism can be misunderstood as suppressing emotions and quietly tolerating injustice. Epicureanism can turn into an escape from responsibility and a complete withdrawal from public life. If Stoicism is reduced to mere endurance, it can become a tool for the powerful to demand that the weak stay quiet. And if Epicureanism is reduced to mere retreat, it can strip people of the courage to change society. The true value does not lie in providing a set of mechanical answers, but forces us to ask, is this matter truly decided by me? Does this desire truly belong to me? And by the Hellenistic and Roman eras, philosophy was no longer just about debating the cosmos and truth. It became more like a technology for healing life. Stoicism chose to stand its ground in the world. Epicureanism chose to take a step back from unnecessary competition. Both attempted to rely on human reasoning, training, and friendship to build an inner sanctuary for the individual. Yet, on another land within the Roman Empire, a new faith was already taking shape. It offered a different kind of hope. Human beings do not solely rely on themselves for salvation. The universe is not just a cold natural order. Beyond human intellect, there exists a God who enters history, cares about suffering, and promises redemption. The core questions of philosophies began to shift accordingly. The question was no longer simply, how can humans find peace by relying on themselves? Instead, it began to ask, if human strength is ultimately limited, could salvation come somewhere outside of ourselves? And this will lead us into the next era of Western thought, the rise of Christianity and the long, complex encounter between ancient Greek philosophy and monotheistic faith.